today we are going to look at very important topic, okay, which a lot of people yearn to have it discussed properly, okay, and we are here. We are going to have a bite of it. Yeah, so we are going to have a bite of it. And then I'm sure by the time we finish with today's meeting, our level of understanding towards these things will be increased. Okay, so that is one of the things that I can always bet and assure you that it's going to be nothing but the best. So I welcome you all on board. And let me move straight to the presentation. Okay, so as usual, I like my meetings to be interactive. So let's make the whole meeting very interactive and engaging at the chat side. Okay, so if there is something that you want to talk about, some questions you want to ask, my team will also be engaging you from the other side. And so in terms of the chat, let's have a great time together. And there's going to be question and answer sessions where we'll be able to go through most of the things and then ask the appropriate questions. Okay, I'll be here to try my best to respond to the questions as much as possible. BIM actually has been one topic which has been at the heart of every professional in the architecture, engineering, and the construction industry. Today, we are going to talk about BIM mandates and compliance. We're going to first find out about BIM, what BIM mandates are, and then look at how we are going to comply in case such a thing should come. And then also we'll look at the options, whether we should adopt, or we should opt out. In fact, any of the three options that we have stated in the theme or the topic, it's a choice we can make. But I will try as much as possible to also show you what the consequence of each is, okay? So we can take a cue of that and then know how to go about it. We're also going to explore global BIM mandates, their outcomes. We're also going to look at Ghana's readiness, okay, and a decision framework for practitioners in the construction industry. We are not in isolation. Ghana is not in isolation, okay? We are not living in isolation. Professionals in Ghana, they work with their counterparts in other regions in Ghana, even in other jurisdictions in Africa, Europe, and I mean, across the globe. So we have to be at par. We have to be at the point where we will all be using the same tools or probably singing the same tune. Do you get it? So we have to be conscious about that. And we also have to know how to go about all these things. So welcome aboard. Today we are going to have a very interesting time. We're going to go through all these. Great. So our agenda for today, we're going to look at international mandates. That's when it comes to global BIM implementation, the requirements and then outcomes of that. Okay. We're also going to look at some use case. We're also going to look at some benefits that has over the time with the application of BIM. We're also going to look at some one or two evidences around to see if adopting BIM is beneficial. We're also going to look at Ghana's BIM landscape, current awareness, usage, and then barriers. We're also going to kind of try so much to propose if we could have a decision framework that will help us in a way of work, because BIM is actually a very important tool which all professionals can actually adopt to make our work very easy, faster, to make us productive, okay, and very efficient. If our system permits us, we'll be able to run a bit of poll to see how, to get your input on how BIM is actually being used around you, okay? There'll be Q&A sessions too, so get your questions ready. My name is Abel Cudjoe. I have been your regular host. And today, I'm going to be the main driver taking you through today's session. So, okay. So, as has already been said, I have several decades of experience in terms of CAD, BIM, AI automation, and I've also, through our work, provided a helping hand or support to a lot of institutions, or let's say corporate institutions in the country, in terms of BIM adoption. If I say I'm going to talk about the things I have done in the industry, it's going to take, almost my entire time. I want to save all those times so I'll be able to delve deep into each area or each point which I have stated in there. So all that has been said is just what you know about me. The regular participants of Webinar Wednesday, I don't need to be repeating this, okay? I'll be sounding like a broken record to you, but I'm actually the head of the team at Royale Limited, head of research, CAP Solutions LLC. So we move on. So before we start to move straight into BIM, let's just wrap our mind around some of the technology compounding in the AEC from 1950 to 2025, okay? This is very important to me because before we talk about what we are currently using, the tools we are using in the industry now, you must first have an idea of where we have come from, which is very, very important to me. We have to know where we are coming from, where we've got into, and then also what lies ahead of us. Now, when we come into the AEC industry, we will realize that from time immemorial to the 1950s, as we have here on the graph, the drawing board was actually the main technology that everybody was using. In the 70s, we had a form of CAD popping up, but Autodesk released its form of AutoCAD around 1982. We had parametrism also being introduced around 85, moving into the 90s. BIM was introduced not on the, let's say, not on the public side, but like within institutions or organizations around the year 2000. But it actually came to light around 2004 when Autodesk acquired Revit, actually, because Revit is not actually an Autodesk product. It was actually acquired from Revit Technology Corporation, okay? And then around 2004, they wrote a white paper, they released a white paper, and then BIM became actually a hit again. But in the 70s, it was spoken about. But around 1992, we had J. Van der Veen and S.P. Thoman releasing also a paper on that. But the team or the organization that made it, as in Ghana, we say a hit, was Autodesk. When 2024, they released a white paper on that, and then they also commercialized the acronym BIM. Right from there, we had algorithm modeling, we have interoperability, we have photogrammetry, we have AI BIM. So you see, the integration of AI into BIM has been around, okay? Now it is appearing as if that is what is in vogue, but it has been around over the years. But a lot of things have been built on it since its inception around the year 2000. But generative designs, you have robotic construction, we have Internet of Things, you have digital twin, now we have reality capture, we have AR and VR in, because all these things being placed into it. We have AI Copilot. Now we are moving into the point where BIM can now be moved into systems that can help in autonomous construction. What I want you to notice, check from the 1950s to the 70s, when a new technology was introduced, or where there was a change in hand in the technology. Look at it, about 20, 30 years. Okay, now look at from the 70s to about maybe the 85 there. Look at the gap, about 15 years, and you have one technology changing. Right from there to about the year 2000, look at it. Another 15 years and one technology coming. But now look at around 2004 to 2025. Within that short time, the compression of technology usage, or the technology that is being used or being built on top of each other, it keeps increasing day by day by day. And now, where exactly we have gotten to the point where everybody can now write their own software. This one that I have mentioned is a subject for another day. Okay, but that is where we've gotten to when artificial intelligence is brought into this space. Now, organizations can request for tools to be designed for them, specifically for their needs and how they want to actually take over the industry or be productive, exceptionally productive and efficient. So we've gotten to the point where there's some kind of autonomous creation in most of the things, not only in the tools we're going to use, but also, but also in the change in terms of technology. So this is one very important thing which I want you to take note of. So BIM is actually what we are going to look at, but all the various shades or all the various additions or the new technologies that are sitting on top of BIM, at this point, we can call all of them or consider all of them as an addition to the BIM, okay? Because they all sit on the BIM. Now, artificial intelligence is so broad, but we are able to pick portions of that and tune that to BIM or build information modeling, or let me call it BIM, okay? So now let's zero down to BIM. Now, what someone may ask is, what is BIM? When I'm asked this question, it's always tricky for me, but I will try. In fact, I've tried to quote some sources so that I will use that to explain it to you. But it's always difficult for me because I look at it from a different perspective. And it's like someone standing in that kind of confusing matrix where at my point I see 3 and at your point you see 4, or 6 and 9 confusion where I see it at 6 and you see it at 9. But BIM is building information modeling. Some too will say building information management. Do you get it? That is why I say it's a bit confusing. But the true concept of BIM goes beyond the modeling. It is actually the management. But in most instances, the name is interchanged. But you have to be observant to know which areas they are talking about. Because for the build information modeling, it's talking about the technology that is used to create a digital model, that virtual model that you're talking about. So an example of that is Revit or ArchiCAD or some of these technologies that are used for the digital models. I mean, for the creation of digital models. Then the management tools are the tools that are meant for, for collaborative processes. Okay, but in that case, you have to obtain first the digital model, and then you collaborate, or you will share the model among the various professionals or the various disciplines. Do you get it? So get the concepts right. So if somebody says it's good information modeling, the person is right. If one person says good information management, the person is right. If you're a designer, your bit of the good information modeling is more about getting a tool to get your digital model up, okay? And then to the project manager or to the facility manager or to the one keeping everybody on the project, the person will be looking at the building information management, okay? So any of the two, we are still right. But let me quote the National Institute of Building Sciences, NIBS of the US, that defines BIM as a digital representation of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. The digital representation of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. So you have a facility, there's digital representation of it, and there's also the physical and functional characteristics embedded into it. American Institute of Architects also define it as a model-based technology linked with a database of project information. Now, sorry, I'm not quoting any of the professional bodies in Ghana here, but when they define or we define it, I'll add them to the quote. Okay, so sorry about that. Probably you are seeing USA, pardon me. You understand me as we move on, okay, with time. Now, BIM enables 3D, 4D, and 5D representation. So the 3D is the geometry that is created. Then there is a time bit that is added in terms of the scheduling. And then there's also the cost bit that can also be pulled out of this whole stuff. Okay. Because for the cost, not the pricing, because the measurements or all those data comes with the model. Okay. So one interesting thing, let's say in Revit or BIM quantity takeoff, is that you don't do the normal quantities takeoff or the measurement that you do. No, you extract them because the model comes with its data. So in BIM quantity takeoff, you don't spend a lot of time trying to find GEF, find the surface area, find volume, and we don't do that. Okay, those things we don't do that in BIM. We extract the quantities because all these things comes with the data. Now, BIM also helps to improve coordination between stakeholders. Okay, and if I say the stakeholders, I mean the owner, the contractor, the architect, the structural engineer, all the stakeholders on the project. It also helps reduce errors and rework, and it also supports facility management throughout the building's life cycle. Okay, so these are all very important function that BIM helps us to do. I wouldn't go so much into that because I'm building a point. I want you to understand the BIM. Then we get to level of BIM maturity because we are going to look at the various levels of BIM maturity that countries have got into. Okay, so you have to understand what is meant by level of BIM maturity, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so the concept of BIM maturity level helps organizations and professionals to understand where they stand in terms of BIM implementation and guide them towards higher level of adoption, collaboration, and efficiency. Okay, it doesn't only help organizations and professionals, it also helps nations. Okay, like UK, like this, because they had proper understanding of the level of BIM maturity, they were able to mandate based on the level of maturities. So they could say by 2016, everybody working on government projects should get to level 1 or level 2 BIM maturity. You get it? And then now they are saying that by 2025, everybody working on government projects should be working on, should be getting to level 3 of BIM maturity. So you need to probably, actually understand what the various levels of BIM maturity is. Now, when we say level, in fact, it starts from level 0 actually. So when you say level 0 of BIM maturity, it represents the absence of BIM or minimal BIM adoption. It typically involves 2D CAD drafting or traditional paper-based documentation without any collaboration or integration of information. So if you are an expert in CAD and you have 20 years of working experience, congratulations, you are at level 0 in terms of BIM maturity. If you are using the drawing board and you haven't moved yet to even CAD, congratulations, you too. You are at level 0. You've not even started the journey. You are at level, okay, probably you started, but you're starting from 0. So you are at level 0. You are all graded as 1. That's the unfortunate thing. CAD users. So CAD users and those who use the drawing board are all considered at level 0. That's the unfortunate thing. So if you're a CAD user, please move away from level 0. At least get to 1. Okay. So what is level 1 of BIM maturity? Level 1 introduces the use of 3D modeling, okay, but the information remains unstructured and it's not shared across different disciplines. Each discipline creates and manages its own separate 3D model. So like the way a lot of people use Revit now. Yes, if you're a Revit user at the professional level and you are very good, you can create all the models, you can create all the designs, but you are not creating work sets and sharing your project, you are also at level 1. Okay, so the works are shared on pen drive. So when you are done, please, this is my file. Then you share it on pen. You are at level 1. You have not gotten to level 2 yet. Now, in level 2 is characterized by collaborative working and the use of common data environment, we call CDE. Okay, it involves the integration of individual discipline models into a shared environment, allowing for better coordination and collaboration among stakeholders. So you can have, let's say, if you are looking at level 2 in an architectural office, A central file could be created on your server and it's shared within the organization. Do you get it? Then it means that that organization is using or is operating at level 2 BIM maturity. So it looks like the whole thing rests on the level 1, but when you're able to share your works with other stakeholders, the extent to which you can share effectively lifts you from 2 to 3. Okay, so bear that also in mind. That level 3 represents full collaborative working, and level 3 is considered the highest level of BIM maturity. Though there has been the proposal of 4 and 5, which we'll be looking at also as part of our keynotes. But level 3 involves the integration of all project information into single shared model, as in what we call federated model. All stakeholders have access to and can contribute to the federated model in real time. So the architect could be in Ghana here, the structural engineer can be in South Africa, or the interior designer can be in France or Dubai, the mechanical engineer can be in Tamale, and we will all be working on this federated model along, over a cloud forum or platform. You get it? So if you're able to do that properly, then that moves you up onto the level 3. But the levels are intended to provide a framework, okay, for understanding the extent of BIM implementation and collaboration within a project, within a project or organization, okay, and even as a nation, okay. So it's very important. Some too have brought up the idea of level 4, which involves enhanced integration and automation, okay, where communication systems are brought into it, and most of the processes are also automated along that cloud platform, okay. So, but you see, the issue is that it is not well defined, and countries haven't actually adopted it yet, because then you need to clearly define it before you can implement it, because it is not one nation policy, it's a global policy. Do you get it? So if you want to bring in the level 4, then it ought to be properly defined. Okay, but these higher levels are still under development and are not as widely adopted or defined as the first 3. Okay, level 5 is also, aside the integration and then the automation, it's also incorporating artificial intelligence and other key new technologies. So this is roughly what we know so far about the level of BIM maturities, which you must also know. Now, let's look at BIM adoption across the world. Okay, let's look at BIM adoption across the world. Are we the only countries trying to, find our way around BIM? No. The map here gives you a clear idea, okay, of countries that have made attempts to work on BIM and those that are trying but have not yet been recognized or acknowledged. Okay, so that is it here. So those marked as green, those that have open BIM standard or have mandates. Okay, so they either have open BIM standards or they have mandates. Like there is a BIM mandate. If you are not getting what BIM mandate is, just hold on a minute. I just want to show you how it's adopted across, and then we'll come back to talk about what BIM mandate means. We also have those marked yellow. Yeah, they look yellow. So those countries, for them, there's BIM mandate for public construction. Okay, so all those countries you're seeing there, there is a mandate, like that, it's mandatory for them. If you want to use government projects, then you have to use BIM, because countries that use BIM or countries that mandate BIM for public use, they make a lot of savings. They have value for money when it comes to their projects, public projects. So for them, they have mandated that for public construction, you need to use BIM. Then we also have those in red. For them, they have active BIM programs. Okay, they have, I mean, they have active BIM programs. And then for those in the purple color, for them, BIM is being recommended. This image doesn't perfectly talk about them because it's been updated. And even here, I'm not seeing why Morocco is not in the picture, or even Egypt, which is actually competing head to head with South Africa. So, but we'll be looking at, I think this image is a bit up. Okay, this one talks about the top 50 countries and their BIM adoption level. So at least this one speaks closely to the truth. The literature we are going to look afterwards will give you a clearer picture of the current state as of 2025. Okay. And you see, we are at the nascent side. It means that we are beginners, but we have bright future. Okay. All those without gray or those ash colors, those countries, they are called the nascent. What it means is that we are beginners. We are not emerging. Emerging means they have used it, and they are moving from levels to levels, okay, or they have specific programs that they are using. But for country like Ghana and those in the other, like in the African regions that you are seeing, we are not having much going. So we'll look at that and then where exactly we have got into. If we want to look at Africa critically, we have this table that also, I mean, tells you how the countries are performing. I mean, the key countries that are doing very well in terms of BIM. Algeria, Tunisia, they are all emerging. They are doing well. We have Kenya, we have Nigeria. They are around the orange color. You see, so as of 2025, Nigeria has become an emerging country in BIM adoption. Nigeria is considered now. See, previously they weren't, but Nigeria, Algeria, Tunisia, they are considered now in 2025 as emerging countries. We'll look at what Ghana can also do to be considered as an emerging country, okay? Because what Nigeria actually did for them to be considered as an emerging country is not anything unique, unlike Egypt or South Africa, okay? So we'll be looking at that as we move on. Uganda, Rwanda, and Ghana, we appear to be in the same bracket. What is driving adoption is individual enthusiasm, okay? You feel you want to be competitive as an organization. You feel you want to probably do well, okay? Or probably you are part of an organization or a professional body that does professional, or let's say CPD programs, okay, continuous professional development programs. And so you also have the opportunity to join at some point in time. So those are your motivation, okay? But there's no policy that anybody is following. The green ones are the developing ones. So you have Morocco, we have South Africa. And as it will surprise a lot of people, when it comes to BIM mandate, Egypt is on top of Africa. Egypt is the leader, ahead of South Africa. But South Africa has a lot of people who have adopted BIM than Egypt. But Egypt is putting together policies that is making them closer to mandating on BIM, especially for public projects. Okay, so that is the picture of Africa. I've given you that of the global picture. We have narrowed down to Africa. And if you are in Kenya, if you are in Rwanda, if you are from South Africa and Ghana, we ought to also sit up and see what we can do to remain relevant on the global stage. So now, I've been talking about BIM, I've been talking about BIM mandates, I've been talking about level of maturity and all those stuff. What is BIM mandate, or what is a BIM mandate? So a BIM mandate is a government or regulatory requirement that makes the use of building information modeling compulsory for specific types of construction projects, typically public infrastructure. Okay, so government projects, let's say public projects, if there is a policy that mandates that every government project, whether it is e-block that is being built or an interchange that is being put up, you need to use BIM. You see, it helps. And this forum is actually not to talk about the various benefits of BIM, but if you use BIM, you save a lot of time, you save a lot of cost, you become very productive, you become very efficient. Okay, and so now when governments use it, you are able to reduce the cost of the project by several percentages. Okay, it is believed that 30% of construction costs, 30% is due to cost override or errors in design. Now, BIM takes away that errors. We always say to error is human. So what BIM says is that human being, take your error, don't bring it into the design. So BIM tries to eliminate errors as much as possible. Now, so when those errors are minimized, cost is gained. Do you get it? So cost is gained because let's take one instance. If you are doing quantity takeoff, we know by the rules, you need to keep your figures in 2 decimal places. Revit doesn't keep its figures in 2 decimal places. If you want to view 2, it will give you 2, but it keeps it in all the decimal places. So there is precision. There is savings made. It's the final figure that is going to be rounded up. And so imagine we have these 4 walls, 1, 2, 3, 4 in a room, and we are finding the surface area walls, and each of them we approximate the decimal units. By the time you finish, either you will gain or you will lose. Do you get it? But all these kind of uncertainties ought to be moved out. So BIM gives us that kind of leverage to be able to take all these things out. So countries are reducing cost of their projects. Their projects are becoming much more efficient. They're able to get their works done quickly. And then when there are changes, they're able to also make those corrections within the shortest possible time. That saves the project's time because the distance or the time interval between design and construction is reduced drastically. And that really, really, really helps. Okay. So globally, the countries decided that let's mandate these things. Let's get to the point where we will root out corruption. We will take away, connivance. We will take away cost override. We'll take away all those stuff from it. So I always tell people that if you have projects from countries like US and it's a government project, or maybe Europe and all those places, and they give you the model and they say take off your quantity surveyor, and you go to use manual quantity takeoff, it's a trap. They will know. Even the architect will know if your cost is over. They will know because the technology is there now. So if you're a quantity surveyor, you should know how to use BIM to do your takeoff, and that will help you. If you're an engineer, you should also know how to do that collaboration, and that will help you. So what does a BIM mandate typically include? Okay, if we say a country has mandated, has brought up a policy that let's say all public projects or public infrastructure projects should be, BIM should be used. What does that mean? It covers some key areas. So first, it talks about the file format standard, where you have to use open formats like IFC. IFC format, IFC simply means industry foundation class. Okay, it's a form of interoperability platform where you can channel softwares or let's say designs from one technology or platform to another. Okay, so whatever technology you are using should be able to talk to that industry foundation class. Now, for your modeling, there are requirements. I had the privilege to attend a drafting school, and in the drafting school, in the draftsmanship school, you were taught with standards. So by the time we came out of the school, we knew certain standards for certain aspects of a building. And when I came out, I realized that almost everybody that does architectural drawings, they deal with those standards also in mind. When you go to an architectural school, you also realize that they teach with the same standards. They tell you maybe standard sail height is this is that. So they give you all those standard stuff. And then when you come out, you see them around as well. Okay. But when you come to structures like this, it is not, the standards are not that clear. Okay. The variations, the various forms we have, the variants are too much. Okay, the variance in structures are too much now. Do you get it? And so for the modeling, there are requirements, and all these things are captured in the BIM mandate. Then there's also what we call level of development. Some will call it LOD, or level of detailing. It doesn't matter. But level of development or level of detailing is very, very important. In other jurisdictions, when you present your work, you need to define the level of detailing, because that will determine how much you charge. Okay, so level of detailing, it starts with 100. So we have LOD 100, we have LOD 200, we have 300, we have 350, and then we have LOD 400. So all these ones, it talks more about your level of development or your level of detailing. LOD 100 talks about, let's say, conceptual, like sketch. So you sketch, and maybe you are doing a design for a client as an architect. And at that stage, you want to give the client a fair idea of how much the project will cost. But it's just sketches. But that level of detailing is very, very low, but you will be able to provide a cost. But that cost level is actually considered as a guess estimate. Do you get it? So there are standards that pertains LOD or your file formats, and there's also collaboration protocols. Okay, that CDE thing that we spoke about in the earlier definition. All these things are captured and they are spoken clearly, they are defined. So they are standards when it comes to BIM. I mean, if I say we, I mean Royale. Our center, we are an Autodesk authorized training center. And when we provide training for people, we see, like, even when we go to institutions and we want to help them with their like, want to help them improve or get to a certain level of development or a certain BIM level, we first investigate their way of work, their works. So we'll look at one or two and then see how we can help them improve or make it better. Now, one of the things that we realized was that a lot of people came to BIM from CAD and they never left their mindset out. They still do BIM with CAD mindset. And so though they are doing BIM, all they are focused on is the working drawings. And when they are done, they take everything to PDF, print it, and that's all. And I see that as an abuse of the technology. And one funny one, which I saw somewhere, was that they are still using CAD, but they use the Revit to do the modeling, and then they export their elevations and the views into CAD. I said, why not moving? Because you can do everything in the BIM space. So there's a clear protocol, there's a clear direction as to how we should go about it. When it comes to documentation, BIM execution plan. So all your assets that you are going to get, they are called assets or assets information. And that is one of the things that is actually affecting a lot of organizations in Ghana who want to adopt BIM, or let's implement BIM to level 2. I see that amongst a lot of architectural firms. Pardon me, I'm sharing a lot of, experiences, but I'm guided not to use names, so just pardon me on that. One of the things that we realized was that there is a problem. Because of that, a lot of architectural firms are not motivated to move from level 1 to level 2. And the challenge is this. When you see in BIM, everything about every documentation part, or every documentation, every data, whether it's physical or functional, is embedded in the digital model. So now the question is, do I share my Revit model to the structural engineer? Because if I share it with him, I've given him all the things, like I've given everything that he needs. Do you get it? So that asset information, there should be clear legal protocol when people know that, okay, so these ones copyrighted, they belong to the architect. And what the architect should also know is that if you don't give it ample BIM information to the structural engineer or the MEP engineer, and he also goes to build his data and gets the model, you also don't get the model back. So the moment you do your BIM work and you send it to them in CAD, you have broken the chain of BIM. You've broken it. Because whatever they do, they will also convert it back to CAD and give to you. Then you are back to square one. Okay, so if you have proper BIM documentation in terms of mandate, all these things are clearly spelled out. And for us in Ghana, we need something like that. The scope is also defined. Is it going to be on public or government projects alone? If that is the case, then how does that concern the engineer or the architect somewhere or the MEP? How does that concern them or the contractor? Do you get it? So all these scopes are clearly defined in the mandate. Great. So now, why BIM mandates matter? Is it important? Does it matter? Now, BIM mandate standardizes practices across the industry. So when an architect is sending a file to an MEP engineer, it is standardized. The MEP engineer knows what to expect. Actually, these are some of the things that makes Royale exceptional, because for us, we provide the training across all the various disciplines. And so when we're teaching MEP engineers, we let you know what the architects will be bringing to you. But we are not everywhere. Do you get it? So when there is that mandate, it is standardized. So everybody knows, okay, so this is the documentation. This is the standard. Just as you have the building code. So these are the standard, and these are how you should go about them. It's very, very important. We also have accelerated BIM adoption. We have improved accountability and reduction of waste. It also enables better cost control and sustainability. Then it also decreases design errors and clashes. These are the reasons why the mandates are very important. So now let's look at the global BIM mandate, and then we'll zoom down to Africa, and then we'll compare Africa's own with Ghana. If I compare UK to Ghana in terms of BIM, it is not fair. So let's talk about those advanced ones, and then we can learn from them, because that is where we want this whole conversation to be heading to. Now, we're looking at the global BIM mandates. Let's look at UK and Singapore for starters. We'll look at Italy, we'll look at Poland, we'll look at those other ones. Now, what about UK? Now, in UK, level 2 BIM was mandated on centrally funded projects. And what they said was that by 2016, everybody should get to level 2. I will show you a picture shortly. You will see, I'll show you a graph shortly, and you will see the countries and the dates that they started thinking about mandating their professionals or putting up mandatory policies to guard the professionals. Now, so UK stated their mandate that by 2016, every government project which is centrally funded will be run. I mean, the minimum BIM maturity should be level 2. And I know if I say level 2, by now you understand the level 2. That's why I started from there. Now, they said by 2025, which is this year. So by the end of 2025, now the 2016 mandate expires. And then now every work that you'll be working on should be at level 3. So if you're a professional in Ghana and you want to collaborate or work with a partner from UK, after 2023, they'll be requiring that you present your works with level 3 BIM maturity. I must confess that from the time we started training at Cudjoe, we haven't received any request for even level 2. So all the trainings we provided, it has been on level 1. And that should tell you that we were actually at the beginners level, and people were now going to demand or request for the level 2. Some even did not know that there is a level called level 2. People did not know. Do you get it? And they didn't know that there are higher levels that they can aspire to. Because of that, in fact, but for us in-house in Cudjoe, we have even the knowledge up to level 3, even beyond, because we've even developed our own tools that is going to even take it to even level 5. In-house in Cudjoe, for us, we are sorted out. And so from August, we want to start with level 2 training for all those that have come for training with us on level 1, because BIM maturity level 1 is what we have championed all this while. And so from August, we want to move people from level 1 to level 2, and then possibly level 3, and then what have us, like whatever that they may request for. The outcome, or the expected outcome there, they had 33% cost reduction and then 50% time savings, and that gave them competitive advantage. So imagine you have a project that costs $1 million and you are saving 33% of that cost because you've adopted BIM up to level 2. So you see the kind of savings that comes to the nation. I'm sure if the policymakers of this country should hear some of these figures and implement them, make it up as a requirement, even for procurement and other things like that, we'll be able to go far and save a lot of cost and time for our country. Now, Singapore also went on with BIM submission mandatory for architectural plans since 2013. They said that if you are bringing your plans for permit or for approval by 2013, it ought to be BIM. So you don't only submit your plans, but you submit a BIM model of that, so that for an entire city, they can be placing those models, group them, and then be placing them on it. So they have digital cities, because from 2013, they started requesting for that and demanding for things like that. In Ghana here, I noticed, or I learned that for most of the municipal and the metropolitan assemblies, there were massive training for them, not necessarily on BIM, but for, in terms of their permit processes and things like that. But they were all geared towards BIM, but probably it wasn't actually expanded very well. And maybe if there's somebody here in Ghana here, who works with the municipal or the metropolitan assembly, when we go to the Q&A session, you can help us with, or maybe confirm some of the things that I'm saying. So Singapore was supported by a comprehensive training program and subsidies for implementation. Because they knew it was going to be helpful, the government gave some tax reliefs just to be an incentive, so that if, let's say, you're an architectural firm and we are giving you some maybe 5% tax reduction, what we are saying is that use that 5% to train your staff in BIM. You get it? So that actually helped for Singapore to expand their BIM range, and it really helped them. There are other global BIM mandates that we can talk about. Italy and Poland. What Italy said was that BIM is required for public projects which are greater than 100 million euros by 2019. And then by 2025, they are saying that all projects that greater than 1 million euros should be BIM. Okay, so BIM was required of them. So look at it, 2019, they required that for bigger projects. But by 2025, they have dropped it down to 1 million. And it was a kind of pilot mandate program, which they were running, which was very helpful and useful. Okay. Now for Poland, they drew that roadmap for public procurement. And they said any project that was greater than 10 million euros by 2025, and all public works by 2030, okay, it ought to be BIM. So Ghana can also say that. So Ghana can also say that. But you see, we will look at other African countries, how they implemented theirs, and we will see how we can also do ours in a small way. Look, there are a lot of benefit that comes with it. Now, if countries that are mandated with BIM are coming to run programs in Ghana, and they know that we are not BIM compliant, because of the expectation of them in their country, they will route it through another African country that is using BIM, or the organizations that could prove in Ghana here that they are BIM compliant, they'll be liaising with them. And your organizations will be, your organization will be there, and you'll be wondering why you are not getting foreign counterpart. And it's because you don't know how to use BIM. Don't wait for such requests to come first before you rush to go and learn how to use BIM. Okay, don't wait, because when that happens, you'll be under pressure, and within a month you want all your staff to use BIM, and that's a lot of pressure. But now that you are not having that pressure, you can do that gradually. You get it? So that by the time that pressure comes, you'll be fine. So Spain and Brazil. So Spain constituted a national BIM commission that gradually extended BIM requirements to infrastructure and buildings. That's what Spain did. Now for Brazil, they had a phased BIM strategy. Okay, so the mandatory use in federal projects from 2021. Then they are saying that by 2028, you're going to have full life cycle use of BIM. Okay, so not only at the design, but also during the construction, and then during the property management, that's the facility management side. So that's the full life cycle. So that is Brazil. Okay, Japan and US, these guys are at the top there. Okay, so Japan introduces digital construction, or I-construction, and they targeted 20% productivity increase by 2025, and then also using 3D models, drones, and ICT. So Japan and technology. For them, instead of just aside mandating, they went beyond that, and they are even instituting I-construction or digital construction. USA, through their General Services Administration, also proved that 3D and 4D BIM program should be something that should be used since 2007. So when we were thinking of moving from drawing board to CAD, or CAD to whatever thing will help, they had already mandated, and they were moving from 3D to points where they were introducing time, they were introducing cost and other stuff. You get it? So that is very important to note. Now, we can look at some of the benefits in UK health projects, and their environmental agency benefits which they gain and all this stuff. We can look at that. But if we look at return on investment that were reported, the average return on investment in the US, it was about 700%. So it means for every $1 that you spend, you had a return on investment about 7.5 in the US. They recorded that. Okay, so, and it's true. And it can even be said in Ghana. If you have your team trained in BIM, let's say in Ghana here, around 4,000 Ghana cedis, even up to the professional level, let's say level 1, 4,000, it's not even up to 5,000. And then depending on what so the average is around that figure, 4,000, 5,000, but you can have some as low as even 2,500 or something like that. Do you get it? And you learn and you move from CAD to BIM. Projects that will take you about a month to do in CAD, you can use about a week or less to do that in BIM. Roughly, what it means is that if you can do one project in a month, you can now do 4 projects in a month. So can you estimate the return on the investment on you going to learn it? It's massive. Okay, and it is not for USA or the Scandinavian regions or Japan alone. It is across board. Everybody that moves from CAD to BIM gains the benefit. Straightforward. There is no conditions. No, everybody that gets it, that moves gains all these benefits that I'm talking about. Then there's also about 75% RFI reduction. RFI is request for information. When it's in CAD, all the time, the QS will be requesting, will be sending queries and requesting for further information and all this kind of stuff. If you use BIM, about 75% of them, there is 75% reduction in RFI requests, okay? But if you move down to the return on investment, you have about 20% time reduction, 10% cost reduction. These are some of the things that averagely that people are talking about. Then they said 7.2 savings per $1 invested. And then you also have high return on investment in the Scandinavian countries and Japan. Ghana, ours is even more. Ours is even more. I'm saying ours is more because of the cost of training in Ghana. We are part of Autodesk chain of certified instructors in the world. In the US, if you are learning CAD, you will pay about $1,000. If you are learning to professional level, you would have paid about $2,000 to learn CAD. In Ghana here, what you pay is not even up to $200. Around $100, $150. So the amount of investment we put into BIM, because we compare ourselves with ourselves, we see it to be very expensive. And sometimes we don't have other higher rates to compare with. The closest we have is CAD. So we say, oh, Revit, 5,000 is too expensive. Revit, 3,000, 2,000 is too expensive. But we are not comparing with the actual value out there. You will learn Revit in the US. We communicate, so we know the cost involved out there. You wouldn't pay less than $2,000 to learn Revit to the professional level. You get it? And even in some places, you'll be paying about $3,000. You get it? So the amount of money we put in terms of investment in BIM is all the time low in Ghana. So we get more return on our investment, more than even the US. So it is something that we will encourage people to do. Now, there was this research or this article or this research that was done and published in one of the journals, which I can give the source. I didn't want to be flooding my presentation with all the sources, but we have all of them, which we can make available to you when you need them. Probably you need them for further works. We'll be able to give them to you. So there's something that was conducted. We call the Ghana BIM Awareness and Usage. One lady called Frida Amwa did that research in her research work, and then she published it. So that in Ghana here, if you're talking about the awareness of BIM, we have about 72.5% of Ghanaian professionals. They are aware of BIM. They know that there's something called BIM, B-I-M. They know everything about BIM. They are aware of it. But only 23.5% are using BIM. Only 23%, 23.5%, less than a quarter of those who are aware are using. You get not the entire professional, so 23.5% of those who are aware are using BIM. So we still have it in low numbers, okay? Now, 52.6%, they have not planned of using BIM at all. They know that BIM is there, yes, but no, I'll still stick to my CAD, okay? Yeah, they have no plans of moving, no. BIM, I've tried some BIM and they are not very effective, so I'm not going to use it. That's what they say. And so 52.6% have no plans of using BIM. Then it also came up that about 37.5% of those that use Revit, those that are currently using Revit in Ghana here are using Revit. Okay, so the emphasis is that Ghana's readiness gap and the call for this strategic campaign ought to be amplified. Okay, we need to talk more about it. We need to make the noise. We need to make more of the noise so that people will adapt, because it's really going to affect us. Let's look at the BIM adoption in leading African countries versus Ghana. Okay, because for the argument we are making, we are looking at how we can improve on Ghana's take. So how are other countries performing? Because earlier on, we show a chart that was having, that was indicating the countries and their level of adoption. So we're going to look at we're going to do a comparative analysis of building information modeling implementation across key African nations, examine government mandate, industry adoption, and outcomes in relations to Ghana's current position. So the current state of BIM adoption in Africa. So BIM adoption across Africa shows varying level of maturity, with no country, none, not even one country, yet implementing a full mandatory approach comparable to European or Asian standards. I have said in, I think, some of my meetings before about South Africa mandate, like making it mandatory, but that is not governmental. Okay, so if any of you have been in that before, you say, "Oh, but you've said this before." I'll clarify that when I get to South Africa. Okay, I'll clarify that. But it is not the country that has mandated, but the professional bodies took that step, and we can learn from that. So Ghana's BIM usage, we've already established that 23.5% of the professionals who are aware of BIM are using BIM. Okay, and so that's Ghana's BIM usage. And for Ghana, only about a quarter of the surveyed professionals in Ghana currently use BIM in any capacity. So whether level 1, level 2, or level 3, that's it. And then despite over 70% awareness of the concept. Now, in terms of mandate, is zero. No African country has implemented a comprehensive legal or legally binding BIM mandate across all construction sectors. And then we have 4 leading nations: Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. They are at the forefront of BIM adoption with various implementation strategies and growing usage. I'm so much moved by Nigeria's effort. Nigeria appears to be taking BIM much more serious than Ghana. About 2-3 years ago, I did the same presentation, and Nigeria was just like us. Okay, Nigeria was just like us, individual motivation, and we weren't having all those stuff. But Nigeria's terrain is changing, and it's changing very quickly, and we have to take some of these things very, very serious. So Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya, they are the forefront of BIM adoption. The continent is actually experiencing a gradual organic growth pattern, with most countries forming committees, releasing guidelines, and encouraging BIM use in public projects before considering formal mandates. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm here. Okay. So now let's look at South Africa. Okay. South Africa's own is industry driven. The momentum you see in South Africa is industry driven. So while South Africa lacks a formal government BIM mandate, it demonstrates strong industry driven progress. Through active development of national BIM policy and standards framework by industry body, okay, like BIM Community Africa. So let's look at this. For South Africa, their professional bodies have their own, like they have mandated that their members by a certain time should get to a certain level of BIM, and they have supervised that, and they have made sure they followed it to the teeth, and it has actually helped them. So in Ghana here, you don't look far, look at Ghana, you'll be shocked. Or if you look at most of these big projects along Ridge and other places, you see that the BIM consultants are from South Africa. Do you get it? Yeah, they're from South Africa. Why? Because Ghana, we are known not to be BIM compliant. So if a country, let's say an institution, an organization in the US or a donor agency from UK wants to come to Ghana, they route it through South Africa. After all, they see Africa as one country. We in it see it as individual countries, but a typical American sees Africa as one, just because theirs is like a whole continent. So they see ours to be the same. But South Africa has done very well by their professional bodies taking the lead in helping them to set the framework, okay, and then make it mandatory for their members. And they are really benefiting or reaping the benefits of it. South Africa Bureau of Standards actively adopted ISO 19650 BIM standards. Okay, and this is something that Ghana can also do. And then they also have the Convention for Digital South Africa that aligns stakeholders towards implementation roadmap. Then there's also a widespread BIM tools usage among large firms, despite voluntary adoption. So the large organizations, what they are saying is that, yes, it's voluntary adoption. Our professional bodies are mandated, but we are going for it. So you see, there is that collective willingness and the support for their professional bodies. I'm looking for a time where the various professional bodies would try to do something like that, and the members will align, and there wouldn't be resistance. Usually, those that are not migrating to BIM, those that are still using the drawing board and the card will reject. Oh, no, we oppose it. But look, the world is moving to higher levels, and we cannot boast of a policy that is helping to drive our industry. We are going to lose out, and that is where our concentration should be. Okay, so for South Africa, the absence of the national BIM policy remains the primary barrier to comprehensive adoption. Yet South Africa maintains a more prepared stance than Ghana should a mandate be introduced. Okay, let's look at Nigeria. Nigeria, what they did. So there's a policy development where Nigeria is actively working towards BIM mandates and national guidelines that aligns with global standard. Okay, though no official mandate exists yet. So you see, the individual bodies, we can't wait to say that the president should put this as part of their national policy. No, we can learn from our other African countries what they are doing. I wish after this webinar, if we have some of the professional bodies, heads of the professional bodies around, they can actually constitute committees to look at how they can form some standards, okay, do it for your own. Imagine Ghana Institute of Architects goes all out with BIM adoption, okay, set up a committee, comes up with a standard. They liaise with maybe IET, Institute of Engineering and Technology, or Ghana Institute of Engineering, and Ghana Institute of Surveyors, and they are both writing it and they are comparing notes, okay, because whatever Ghana Institute of Architects does or Ghana Institute of Surveyors does, it ought to sync with the others, okay? And they're comparing those, they form one, and then they write a paper on that. They publish it. Even when they even make it mandatory among their members, you can't say that, oh, from next year, everybody should, all our members should use BIM. No, you can't say that. But you can give a sense of timeline, because, by 2028, by 2 years from now, every GHI member, every IET member, every Ghana Institute of Architects member, GHIS member should get to BIM level 1. That is good. That is good for us. Anyway, so we can talk about that more at the end. So Nigeria has their own initiative that is really helping them, like BIM Africa initiative and then the City BIM, which are championing BIM through training, advocacy, and then pilot projects. We also have the adoption status. So BIM adoption remains relatively low in Nigeria, but is gaining momentum, particularly among firms involved in international projects. That one, you can't collaborate with a foreign partner if you are not BIM compliant. So that is actually forcing a lot of large firms to adapt. Okay, but their attitude is just like Ghana. The adoption is low, but they are putting systems in place, which when they decide to mandate at professional level, it will whip the people in line. at least there will be standards to follow. But for us, we are lacking those standards, and there's still low adoption rate. Now, comparative position. Nigeria's industry and professional bodies are larger in terms of size, yes, we know, and are more active in pushing for BIM adoption compared to Ghana. Okay, so they are more active in pushing for BIM adoption compared to Ghana. Both countries share obstacles like cost and skills limitation, but Nigeria is laying stronger groundwork through policy drafts and training hubs. Kenya, what is Kenya doing? Professional community. Okay, so the Kenyan government, so this is the Kenya's example. In 2021, a study found the Kenyan government's role in BIM adoption to be weak. Someone did a study, a firm did a study and published it and said that Kenya's government's role in BIM adoption is very, very weak. Okay, and they are performing below expectations in initiating and regulating BIM use. So what happened was that the professional body, the industry, like the Architectural Association and Board of Registration, they initiated a dialogue on BIM guidelines, but it is not binding. It is not a binding directive yet. Those directives are not yet binding, but they took up that challenge. Okay, so the professional bodies took up that challenge, just as Nigeria did and South Africa also did. Okay, now theirs is market-driven. The implementation is market-driven. High-profile projects in Nairobi often is driven by foreign consultants or donors, and they showcase BIM benefits. Okay, so there are several case studies to look at. Now, outlook, Kenya is comparable to Ghana in lacking mandates, but the industry voices are actively calling for policy intervention to avoid falling behind global trends. Ghana, what is our mandate level? What are we doing? The pride of Africa, Egypt, in terms of BIM. So in 2016, Egypt introduced their first Egyptian BIM guiding standard. That's Egypt BIM code. Egypt, they have a BIM code. Egypt. And you see, the moment you come up the ladder and try to make your voice heard, donors come to your aid. For example, if you are a user of Revit, you could see that we have Egyptian templates. Actually, if you are using the structure and maybe the architecture, you can see there are Egyptian templates, there are South African templates, and Ghana, we are not in the picture at all. Okay, because they have formed the Egyptian building guiding standard, which they call Egyptian BIM code, through the Ministry of Housing Agency. So for them, they did it through the, so for us, we can have something like the Ministry of Works and Housing in Ghana also championing this. And for us, the Ministry of Works and Housing houses the Engineering Council. Do you get it? So the Engineering Council of Ghana can take up this as a tough project, as a big project, and handle it. Do you get it? They can actually add it to their work and actually guide the professional bodies to do that. The professional bodies can also take up the same challenge. In 2020, there's a release of version 2 of the Egyptian Building Code. Look, they have done the first one and they even updated it, providing a unified framework for BIM use in construction and infrastructure sector. Now, the present day, many public sector projects now reference these BIM standards with major developments like the new administrative capital that is requiring BIM deliverables. Egypt is actually a leader, or you can say the leader, though South Africa has more users or professionals adopting BIM. Egypt has quite a number also accepting. I think Egypt has around 55 or 60%. South Africa has about 65. Okay, but Egypt has structures from the national level, their Ministry of Housing Agencies level, and the professional bodies have also accepted it, and it's working well. Do you get it? So these are things that we can also look at. So other notable mentions in Africa, Morocco. Morocco is also doing very well. Morocco has established a building smart chapter and is aligning to ISO, the same 19650 standard. And they are also having their digital Morocco by 2030. They're saying that Morocco is going digital. Morocco is going full BIM by 2030. Ghana, where are we? Where are we? We must have that strategy. So Morocco is having a digital Morocco 2030 strategy, which explicitly aim to boost digital construction capabilities. Look, you can talk about robotic construction. If you are not good at BIM, you can't get that. You can talk about AI BIM. If you don't have if you don't mandate BIM, it will be difficult. You get it? Look at Tunisia and Algeria. These are all doing very well. They have, but for Tunisia and Algeria, what they did, I really love it. They have implemented pilot government projects using BIM methodologies, though no official policy exists yet to standardize implementation. But you see, because of what they are doing, a lot of people, you see, and the way they are publishing it, a lot of people are now also focusing on Tunisia as also a powerhouse for BIM in Africa. Rwanda has included BIM training in construction, upskilling programs as part of efforts to modernize the construction sector and attract international investment. Ghana's position in the African BIM landscape. Currently, Ghana doesn't have any BIM mandate or national standard. We don't have that. And we currently have 23.5% of professionals using BIM in any capacity. The awareness is 70% plus, but slow transition to implementation and reliance on voluntary enthusiasm for individual firms. The key barrier is high initial cost, they say, per the report, of software and hardware. I mean, the key barriers, they're saying that the initial cost of, obtaining the software and hardware is expensive. Then we have limited local expertise and training opportunities. Yes, we don't have a lot of them around. And then also lack of clients' demand for BIM deliverables. Now, the training centers are saying that they don't have enough, like the need is there, but because you have less people showing interest, having large number not migrating, it is actually not making those establishments flourish in moving into the BIM training business. There's also an absence of policy support or government incentives. If we are waiting for governments to do that, probably the influential ones in the professional bodies, or when let's say IET or GHI or Ghana Architects, if they are representatives on engineering council meet, they can bring some of these things, and then they can request for some of these support or interventions through the ministry. Do you get it? And that can really help. All those data that I shared about Ghana's position can be found in an article with the title, "The Level of Awareness and Forecast of Usage of Building Information Modeling by Ghanaian Construction Firms." And the author was Frida Ekwe-Amua, November 2024. Okay, so Ghana faces potential competitive disadvantage in project delivery and regional contracts if it continues to lag behind neighboring countries in BIM adoption. So let's look at this quickly. So Ghana, we've seen that 23.5% aware and using, about 50% or so are only aware, and then those that are not aware are more. Ghanaian firms, about over 50% are saying they have no plans of moving, no plans of adopting, and then those that are preparing to use also up there. These are the firms, okay, and you have more than 45% of the people planning or preparing to use them. The most common tools, Revit, and their key interest is in the visualization. Unfortunately, that is what anybody that is using Revit is thinking about, a 3D. Do you get it? And how I can get my 2Ds faster. They're not thinking about collaboration. They're not thinking about, no, all their focus is the 3D visualization. Okay, and that is, for me, an abuse of the BIM software. Okay, you are woefully underutilizing it. So there is low adoption, and the reason include cost and training needs, highlighting the importance of awareness campaign. So comparative analysis for Ghana, quickly. Okay, so for South Africa, if you are looking at lessons for Ghana, South Africa developed a national policy through industry consensus and stakeholder alignment before implementing the mandate. Okay, so there is that kind of consensus among the stakeholders. So this should be a discussion among professionals now. Professional bodies, hold it up among yourself. Discuss it. I know in Ghana here, a lot of the professional bodies, like I know of IET, I know of GHIE, I know of GHI, is Ghana Institute of Surveyors. They have some of this training as part of their CPD, but it is not properly coordinated in terms of it being mandatory on the members. Okay, but it's optional. That's why we said it is individual enthusiasm and their willingness to improve themselves that is driving it more than a mandate to achieve a certain objective. Nigeria, lesson from Nigeria, we can focus on capacity building and private sector training initiative to prepare the workforce. Kenya, lesson, we can strengthen government leadership and create dedicated BIM implementation bodies. Egypt, we can standardize BIM practice through official guidelines and BIM and require BIM on strategic projects. It will help us. One of the things that I must say also is that for Ghana, if we want to develop some of these things, it's not a big issue because we are not going to reinvent the wheel. There's NIBS, the data is there. If you go to European Union, Europe, they even have BIM task force that are ensuring, that are monitoring to ensure that the countries develop and use the expected standards of BIM that has been stated in their EU mandate. And so we can learn if you want to even learn and adopt quickly. We don't have to start from scratch. There are examples out there which we can implement and adopt, and that will be it. So each country experience underscores that whilst mandating BIM can accelerate adoption, it must be accompanied by capacity building and stakeholder buy-in for it to be very effective. So strategy. So Ghana, we can start by building foundations. Okay, we can establish a national building steering committee with representatives from government, industry, and academia to develop Ghana-specific BIM standard that is aligned with international framework. Then we can build capacity. We invest in training programs, university curriculum, and demonstrable projects to build a critical mass of BIM professionals before considering mandates. Or we can start it up and give the professionals time to catch up. Okay, a deadline by which you should make sure you are BIM compliant. So if it's even 2 years, because we can't give by 2030. Okay, but if let's say we want to do it gradual, like the way UK did, you can say by 2028 we should get to level 1, and it's mandatory. Now you that professional body, you will gain respect on the eyes of the international stakeholders. You gain respect among them. Other professional bodies, members of other professional bodies would like to deal with your members because they know that when they come to your members, they will be BIM compliant. So this one, you should be motivated by the advantages which your members will get and do that. Then you can also run a pilot implementation where you require BIM on selected high-profile projects, maybe public project, to demonstrate value, build expertise, and then create references, or case studies for the industry. And you can also face the mandate. So Ghana has the opportunity to learn from its continental peers and implement a strategic approach to BIM adoption that addresses local challenges while positioning the country for future construction industry competitiveness. There's something we call Ghana's BIM acceptance and education. We call that TAM, technology acceptance model. What we realized was that there's high intention to use BIM among Ghanaian professionals, but there is behavioral intention, but it is driven by behavioral intention, and also by attitude of perceived usefulness. And the perceived ease of use also influences the adoption decision. If you have in your mind that using of BIM is difficult, you are not attracted to adopt it or to learn. So they use the model they call the technology acceptance model, and they came up with all this kind of stuff. So recommendation, we increase awareness through workshops and seminars like this, and then also we integrate BIM into academic curriculum and encourage clients to require BIM in projects. Professional bodies and education. As I said, Ghana has professional associations such as Institution of Engineering and Technology Ghana, Ghana Institute of Engineering, GHIE, Ghana Institute of Architects, Ghana Institute of Surveyors, and many more. But none mandates BIM. but they provide continuous professional development. I mean, this is the true state of Ghana. Okay. Yeah. When it comes to professional bodies, some of them do a lot of these things through their CPD programs, but there's no mandate. There's no compulsion on their members to adopt BIM or to be BIM compliant. Universities like KNUST, they're gradually adopting BIM into their curriculum. I can talk of Central University, those that I know. I can talk about Kumasi Technical University. I know that for sure. I can talk about Takrady Technical University. I know that one too for sure. I know of Cape Coast Technical University. I also know of Akentin Apia Menkan University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development, Amstead. I know of Amstead too as well. They have begun incorporating BIM and digital construction courses as suggested by the TAM study. Okay, so all these I know, and these are also going to help Ghana to the attainment of that. Now, financial and finance, or let's say financial and adoption constraints, this has been one of the major areas of Ghana. They say the cost, the financial cost, institutional and knowledge barrier, regulatory and organizational challenges, technology and market limitations. We have this structure already in Ghana, and we can build on this structure, and that can help. Okay. We have what we call Digital Transformation Policy and Climate Initiative. These are already there in 2024. So the National Digital Economy Policy 2024 dealt with universal connectivity goal, digital skills development, e-government platform, tech entrepreneurship support, digital inclusion and cybersecurity, environmental sustainability focus. The government have done very well in these areas. This platform on which BIM can build on. So the digital economy policy, they are enablers for BIM adoption. So they said, oh, connectivity, and we are having digital connectivity so that there will be internet connectivity everywhere in the country. That policy was for the Ghana digital economy policy, but for BIM, it helps us as well. So we can do collaboration because there's connectivity. The digital skills development also help. The e-government platform can also help in integrating the BIM through procurement and things like that. Now, so long as we have tech entrepreneurship support, it will also help tech entrepreneurs to also develop BIM softwares to help. Cybersecurity, Ghana is doing very well in Africa. I did some checks, and we are doing very, very well. In terms of sustainability, we are also doing very well. So the decision framework is either to adapt, or opt out. Which one should we look at? If we look at to adapt, it means to integrate select BIM tools into existing workflow when budgets or requirements are moderate. What this means is that, okay, so I'm already using CAD. Can I integrate BIM gradually into my usage? Okay, that is adapting. So it means that you are doing gradual adaptation. That one, you can focus, you'll be focusing on probably design visualization, class detection, and probably require targeted training and partnerships. You can also do gradual implementation approach. If you want to adapt, this one, you go for full implementation for complex, high-value projects, or when clients demand compliance. For that one, for those ones, you have to invest in common data environments or CDEs. You also have to have a comprehensive change management. That one is comprehensive. Your staff should change drastically or dramatically, and that becomes tough. You also be considering complete workflow transformation. If you are faced to adopt immediately, those things are not comfortable at all. So you should gradually adapt. Now, to opt out, that opt-out option there, it means to continue with your 2D methods for small or simple projects and decide not to incorporate anything in any big project. You will restrict yourself or limit yourself in that low projects and still use CAD. That one, you will monitor your policy changes, you maintain digital literacy, then you can also evaluate periodically as cost decreases. So these are the options. If you adapt, what are the project types you can work on? What are the cost levels? What are the competitiveness risk? If you adopt, the competitive risk is low. If you adopt, the risk is high because you are moving everything at once. In this local proverb, they say, so if you adopt, if you change drastically, it comes with a lot of risk. But at some point, it will plateau, and then your risk, your risk will start dropping. Okay, so that is it. If you opt out, your risk is very high because you will be disadvantaged. Your competition will over you. So basically, these are the things that we can all talk about. So the way forward for Ghana, we are calling for policy action where we should develop national BIM guideline and roadmap. We should also integrate BIM requirements into public procurement and also offer incentives, that's tax relief or grants, to SMEs. If I say SMEs, I mean the architectural firms or the engineering firms or the construction firms. The government can give you tax reliefs, and in exchange, you should show or present to the government key evidence that you have trained your staff on BIM. Okay, so I think that would be cool for the government, and the stakeholders around here can take such offer to the respective areas, and then we'll see how it goes. For industry, you can start with pilot projects. You can invest in training and infrastructure. You can also collaborate across your supply chain as well. Professional bodies and academia provide continuous professional development and draft a policy or a framework to make it mandatory for your members. You gain the respect of your other professional bodies in the country. You remain competitive. And then on the international stage, you gain the respect of other professional bodies and also other companies or firms out there. Okay. And if you're a professional body and you adopt that, do a lot of publications, publish most of the stuff on your website and things like that, because now there's information aggregation. Every year they aggregate. They don't come into the country to see if somebody is doing something, but they aggregate the data globally. Okay, and the moment you start publishing those things, the signal goes there, and then you will be brought into the limelight. Okay, as I said, Nigeria wasn't doing more than we were doing 3 years ago, but now Nigeria has been added to emerging countries, and Ghana, we are called nascent countries. They call us beginners, but we have promising future. Oh. It's not cool at all. They call us beginners, but we have been using this thing for long ago. Just that a lot of the people, though they are using it, they are not actually coming up to use it well. Okay, and they are not growing in it. If they are using level 1, they are still using level 1, so you can grow with that. So the government should also leverage digital economy initiative, like Ghana here. Government can leverage the digital economy initiative to improve, and also the broadband access. They can also improve the broadband access and then also develop data governance and cybersecurity process, which they have done largely. Okay, so now the government has done its part to make sure the infrastructure is there. If you want BIM mandates, I'm not sure Engineering Council will feel comfortable putting pressure on every professional body to do that. But the professional body themselves can start the process. Now, your CPD programs, you make it mandatory. If you're an architect, if you're an architectural body, make sure you set up mandatory targets. Form committees, BIM committees. Okay, give them targets. Let them come to you with reports and implement them. Okay, that will help. That will help very, very much. So BIM adoption align with climate goals and digital transformation. Okay, that highlights the need for public-private partnerships. What does the future holds? I'm wrapping up. So we have 3 and level 4 BIM adoption, okay, where we have advanced integration and interoperability. We have digital twin, which is real-time building performance monitoring. Then we also have AI-driven design that gives us automated optimization and generative designs, which is already in vogue or is there. Then we have cloud collaboration. These are all what the future holds. So I'm giving you a hint just so that you will know where we are and then what you can be looking out for. So cloud collaboration, which is also already there. We are looking at BIM 360 collaboration, which is cloud collaboration, which gives you seamless multi-stakeholder coordination. We also have sustainability metrics, which everybody is now working around. And that can help Ghana to leapfrog. Ghana, we don't have to start from, let's say, basics. Okay, we can gradually roll ourselves into it, and that will actually help us. So we can leapfrog. As I said, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. Okay, we are not going to reinvent the wheel, but we can take advantage of this and leapfrog. So Ghana's opportunity to adapt modern practices is there. The opportunity is there. Don't stay down. Leap up. Okay, the policies, the mandates, the standards are already there. So you can adapt, form committees, form commissions, or the professional bodies, and start small. If they are not doing it, you, the individual professional, upgrade yourself. Okay, and if you want to upgrade yourself, you can contact Cudjoe. That is one of Ghana's finest CAD and BIM training center. For us, you will not only get level 1, you can get level 1, you can get level 2, you can get level 3. Call us, and we'll be able to help you. I think in the form, on the chat, the coordinator will put the link there, and we can talk about some of these things. We can help you. And if anybody who has joined the program now is willing to take up a course in BIM, a link will be put in there. I will ensure, as you know, I'm the head of the team in Cudjoe. I will ensure you are giving special discounts for taking the first initiative from here and then coming in. And then if you have already taken a BIM program with us before and you are coming again, from 1st August, Royale is running a program where everybody that has taken a course with us before and you're coming back, you have a very special 30% discount. So when you come in again, call numbers and then inform them that you are an old participant. We can easily verify. Okay, you can easily verify that. So so you get cool 30% if you are a second time, you are coming for an upskill. Okay, because we want to do this to help so that we can drive this initiative. The universities I mentioned, most of them, we had a hand in it. That is why I could beat my hand, like my chest with my hand, that they have adopted that in their curriculum. Most of them, we had a hand 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Okay, yes. When people were not even talking about BIM, through our Autodesk Academic Partnership Program, we went to Central University, we went to Takwatenka University, we did some work with Cape Coast University. We were there. And then, and we've been monitoring the landscape to see how it's going. So that's it. So Ghana, we actually doing well, and we can do more. Thank you so much. This is where I bring my presentation